It's great to be here with you all. So I got asked to come and talk about church planting, which I've been involved with the last 3 years. But I thought it'd be helpful starting with a story of someone I know of a church plant that failed. So someone who went to an area, I won't say where in Scotland, endeavoured for 5 years, and then actually there wasn't a church plant at the end of it. And I want to use this story because I think this is very helpful. So this guy was young. He went into ministry when he was 25, came from the Central Belt and decided through a bigger church to plant in rural Highlands. So he spent 3 years in seminary getting his degree, moved up with his family, 3 kids at the age of 25, and decided to try and plant a church in, say, a small rural village. Now, in year 1, the mother church was fully supportive of him. Year 1 was exciting. Everything was new. Everything was searching for our premises, trying to gather people, cultivating a vision. But by year 2, people weren't coming. People had been more antagonistic to the gospel than this man first thought would be possible. And then to add icing on the cake, the mother church started to ask him what he was doing and started to really inject their model into his. So he was encouraged to start Sunday services soon, to start a prayer meeting, to start kind of the things that we would see in a church, established church. But again, this had no bearing and no fruit in his community. And then after 2.5 years or so, the mother church started to talk about how they're restructuring their funding and how that he'll have to basically start to raise the majority of his wage. Got to remember, this guy has 3 young children, has moved to an area and is struggling. And by year 5, this candidate is burnt out, feels dejected. The mother church has moved all its funding from him practically, and they pray for the plant twice a year. And this leads the man to come out of ministry altogether. And why I tell you this story, and it's a true story made up of a composite of people, is because that man was isolated alone and took a project on that maybe he fully didn't understand, and his mother church fully didn't understand. And that is one of the great benefits of joining 20 schemes as a network, as we have done here. So I grew up in Fort William, in a village called Cool. So I'm a Cooligan, so don't hold it against me if you've ever been to Cool. I love Fort William. It is very much like the context I am in now, but it is very different. I've had to learn loads being on the ground here. I've had to seek training, guidance, and mentorship, and all that I've received through the 20 Schemes network, from peer-to-peer stuff. So 20 Schemes is a great partnership for any kind of church planting in urban or rural areas that are high in the deprivation index, because they spend a lot of time in training guys to go into those places. But not also that, from the story I shared, the guy felt alone and isolated. And what that does when we feel isolated and alone is create a culture of us and them. Which we see sometimes in the free church. You don't understand me, you don't understand my context, you don't understand the battles I am facing. And what we subtly do is we create divisions between brothers that shouldn't really be there. And with 20 Schemes, the grand thing with guys planting in contexts like mine and in tough areas throughout Scotland is they understand that battle. They normally have experienced some of the wounds that you experience in ministry. So that brings a fraternity to that network. So it is very much a good one to join in the church planting world. As I said, I've been here 3 years. Most of you may know Madras Street Mission Hall, which it used to be called, which was a great project. But as we are all aware, through the 80s, 90s, into the 90s, we really did feel the death of community, the kind of growing separation between people. And our ministry here dwindled in number on Sunday. So the Free North took a radical decision with my kind of guidance to stop a mission to plant a church, because we ultimately believe that the church is God's primary tool for mission in any community. So we look to plant churches. Like all of you guys who are in established churches right now, someone planted them. If it's an old church, it was probably Thomas Chalmers once he got the money to build in the Highlands. If it's a relatively new church, you may know who the guy was who planted it. But all churches throughout the world have been planted in one form or another. And when we use the language of planting, what it really means is some Christians move into an area who love the gospel, love the Lord, and want to share it. And as we see conversions, as we see new believers, a church is birthed through that alone, through conversions and people coming to know Jesus Christ. It's not like you have a system or a methodology. It is just pure evangelism, preaching and teaching the word. It's not, it doesn't change. I think it's hopefully what the tool sets we all use. But in church planting, that is primarily the two tools we use in evangelism. So I want to kind of cut my presentation short, because what I find more helpful with, and just because of the time restriction I have, is Q&As are normally a better way of helping us disseminate information. So benefits of church planting within networks is support, peer-to-peer learning and training, and also wider like communication of the vision of the church. But I would like to open up just for Q&A. Anyone got any questions, anything you want to ask? I think we would all agree, if we're in ministry at any length of time, ministry is a drain wherever we are. But around our community, we have people with so many needs. And that's physical, mental health needs, relational needs, but above all, spiritual needs. So the way we deal with kind of that constant pressure is prioritizing like times within the church where we can fundamentally focus on prayer, and it's a church family that's in that. So it's not like it's open to the public. Like we always, I think as churches, we open everything up as much as possible, but sometimes it is appropriate just to have the church family together and praying and being more intentional. So that's what we try and do. We try and create a culture of care for those in ministry. And I try and lead in that. So like I have an intern here. Another benefit of going through a network is like interns who come and help serve. They're great, they're wonderful, but they live with you. So you get to know them well. But like one of our interns, they just had a reading week, which I give them off kind of ministry work, but they go and read books that we advise them to read to fill them up. I think, if I'm to be totally candid with you, I think the one-man ministry model in Scotland needs killed and lanced completely. Our demographics, our culture shifted massively. Plus also in the Bible, we get more a sense of team ministries than we do of one-man ministries. So we try and cultivate a team here who will pull together for the gospel. And I think that helps you manage hard weeks when you have two people on the door of breakdowns and one who's needing sectioned and one who's relapsed. Do you know what I mean? It buffers out across the body. So that's how we do it here. But again, I wouldn't say that's a model. I would say it's just what we function as and what we're seeing is working. Yeah, so that's a great question. How do we support plants through our presbyteries? Well, presbyteries, I think it comes to the nature of a presbytery. And a presbytery is actually about brotherhood and collegiality and care for the minister and care for the congregations underneath us. That's if they're functioning as the way they should be. But basically, I get that from our brothers in the presbytery. So guys will want to meet me at coffee, will ask me how they can be praying. Our mother church, the Free North, really takes the lead in that in a lot of places. Just showers care on us. I think when it functions wrong, like I've seen in other denominations, like some in America, is when a presbytery almost run the plant. That's unhealthy. That's why we have guys on the ground to do that. But there's almost this healthy restraint and distance and care. Do you know what I mean? It's like when you're teaching your child to cycle, you don't always hold the saddle of the chair of the bike always, because the child will never learn to cycle. There's that healthy distance that you need to let go at one point and let the child go, and they learn. And I think it's that uncomfortable distance that our presbytery has been really good at here in Inverness. Like, they have let us get on with it, but are constantly asking, is there anything we can pray for, anything we can support you in? You know, and that's really helpful because it's care. It's fundamentally just care, isn't it? Again, I think that's the biggest challenge in church planting is, I think Alistair was kind of raising it, the constant drain. So I often say to the Free North, I'm like a baby, you only hear from me when I'm hungry or needy. So like the danger of that is care is tiresome, isn't it? That's why young mums get tired. And I think that's why Paul writes in Galatians, do not grow weary in doing good, because good doing is wearisome. But basically, that's another key to having a network to pull from. You distribute the load between many members, which is really helpful. I think like what I find helpful as well, just in general, like I think I've heard oppositions to church planting, and I get it. I get like, should we prioritize church planting when Christianity is in decline in the West and especially in Scotland? But I'm part of strategy for our presbytery. And the actual reality is, in our presbytery, in the next 5 to 7 years, a large proportion of our presbytery are either going to be retired or in glory. That's the actual facts. So we have right now resources that we can pull from. We have godly men, we have experienced men in our presbytery who won't be there soon. Therefore, we are duty bound to use that. I think, like, let's be honest, is Jesus going to ask the Free Church its budget when he comes back? No. I would rather see the Free Church bankrupt for Jesus than an institution just going on for its own sake. So we've taken the position we really need to start focusing in on mission and evangelism within our presbytery, because if not, there's going to be young lads like me in the kind of positions of presbytery making decisions without any wiser older men who have fed into my life. So what we're trying to cultivate now is guys who are looking to retire to do training, guys who are going to retire to look at cultivating an intern program within our presbytery, to use guys who know the pitfalls of ministry and the challenges of ministry now to enable our presbytery to reach out into communities. And I find that really exciting. I think we need to have bold visions, and church planting is part of that. It's risky, yes, but anything worth having is risky to do, you know what I mean? So I think that's the challenge we face in church planting. And it also speaks to the kind of counterpoint, where is, should we really be doing this? The answer is yes. Like, the church should always be about this. Yeah, so that's a great question. I get £0 from the central fund right now, and have done since I've been here. What we have worked out is an agreement with the Free North, where basically they cover all my costs, and what I do during the year is raise it. So basically, if I came to the end of this year and I was £5,000 short in fundraising, it's no problem. The Free North has covered that. but by and large, I try and raise every penny we spend here. So to keep food out for hot foods, to keep the electricity on for my wage, we try and cover that all through exterior fundraising. And to do that, we need networks. And for that is like 20 Schemes, Acts 29. We plug into these churches. These churches fund me because there's a vision behind what we're doing, and the vision isn't a pithy one. It's not like in 3 years we're going to be up and running. It's like we're going to be here for a decade. This could be the only charge I ever have in my life, and I'm happy with that. If we can keep on the vision. But they go for it because they see that vision, that we're here to reach Merkinch and South Kent. So yeah, I think that's a false assumption that some people have within the denomination, is we are a drain, when actually we're finding that church plants that get established and get up and running pay into the denomination, so they actually strengthen the whole. And for example here, a good example here is, I have a girl here in our church who's now going to be the minute clerk for our presbytery. So I have someone in my church now who's going to help our presbytery, and we're a church plant, and we're the smallest group in the presbytery. So I don't know. I think it's a weak kind of point of view to say we're sucking money when we're not. When actually the church plants are generally helping, which is encouraging. It's not either or. I think the Free Church should have a robust vision that churches that are struggling, we should gather around and kind of help as best we can, and even ask probing and kind of maybe tough questions of each other. I know certain guys in ministry have been in all our presbyteries except the Western Isles at some point, and some guys should ask themselves the question, am I the right guy for here? Not that should they be in ministry, but are they actually the right guy for the place they've called to? Because some guys take charges, and it's basically like marrying a first date. They go to the church, they preach, everyone puts on their best face, you go your best sermon, and then 6 months to a year in, and you find all this stuff underneath the service, and you may not be equipped for that. And I think it's a right question to ask ourselves sometimes. Do I need to supplement my ministry with someone who can help me in this field, or am I even the right man for here now that I'm seeing what I'm seeing? But that's a controversial question, and a lot of guys don't like it. Like when I started here, we came through, I worked with Neil McMillan in Edinburgh and done an assistantship with him. And then when I came here, we joined 20 Schemes, which means that you have to be assessed through their program, which is really, really good and helpful. And it brings up a lot of blind spots within your own kind of preaching and kind of the way you view culture. It's very helpful. And then once you've done that, you're an approved candidate, what happens is 20 Schemes makes a partnership agreement with you. And the agreement is that if you support them, I think with financially, so I think some goes to the Indigenous Fund, some goes to your training, some goes to admin cost. I think that works out within the agreement. Then 20 Schemes agree to publicise you and put in an intern and a gospel worker alongside you. So instantly they're looking to help you build a team around what you're doing, which is invaluable. And those workers come free of cost because they raise their own wage to come over here. And then once you've come into that, then you can fundraise through 20 Schemes as an organisation within churches, particularly in the States. So that's 20 Schemes, and that is separate to Acts 29. Acts 29 is the largest church planting network in the world by far. And the same kind of principle goes. You apply to Acts 29 and you get assessed through them. They come back with recommendations, and then you're an approved candidate. That's the way they classify you. So you can call yourself an Acts 29 plant at that point, and you become a full member when you have 20 members in your church. And that's when you start paying 1% to the Acts 29 fund globally. But what that gives you, joining Acts 29, is a network to move within, but also see churches in America, they can be very suspicious of people they've never heard about. And to know that you've been assessed through probably one of the most rigorous assessments you can get instantly brings a level of comfort to guys to put you up in front of their church and to kind of suggest you as a partner for funding. And then, of course, again, like throughout A29 last week, I was on a Zoom call with 6 other guys and Paul Tripp, who wrote Dangerous Calling and his new book. And we were speaking about spiritual abuse within the local church, and it was dynamite. I wouldn't have got that access without being part of a church planting network. And I think fundamentally we have to agree, as Presbyterians, we believe in networks because we're the OG network. That's what we believe in. We're connected together, more than just independency, but actually union with Christ, that we are brothers with one another, that we have responsibles and care to one another. So a network shouldn't be a threatening thing to a Presbyterian. It should actually just be like, oh, they're Presbyterian light. We do the real deal. So there's benefits there.